Conversations with Kim, episode number 1, we're going to talk about the question, what do you do? So for those of you watching live, I want you to answer me. How would you answer that question without knowing what I'm about to say? How would you answer that question? Or do you understand that question? Do you have questions about that question? What do you do? And as I listen to your responses, I want to explain that this is one of the most common conversation questions. It's like one of the most common conversation starters when making small talk with people that you don't know. This is especially common if you live in a city like New York or Boston, LA, San Francisco. If you're in a kind of networking, especially in a networking situation, but if you go to a bar or a cafe and you start talking with a stranger, people ask you, what do you do? There's a lot of people who kind of don't like this question, including me, and I'll explain why in a moment. But it's just a question that people always ask. It's an easy, quick question. What do you do? What do you do? And for those of you who have been following my intonation series, the way that you would usually say this, probably to ask it as a question, is what do you do? Because you're asking the other person. Normally, you wouldn't be stressed, but because you're asking the person the question back to them, what do you do? What do you do? They're asking you for your answer, so they're usually going to stress it that way. So in English, we don't usually ask, like, what are you, right? So many languages, when you talk about your profession, people are usually expecting to answer, I am an engineer, I am a teacher, I am a landscaper, I am a florist, I am a writer, I am an artist, I am an actor, whatever it is. So people tend to answer with their profession. And in a lot of cultures, your profession is like your definition of you, right? You use this noun to describe yourself. What are you? And so that's how people ask. But people don't ask you, what are you in English? So when people ask, what do you do? There's one of two questions that they're asking there. One is, what do you do for work or for a living, as one of you guys commented in the chat. The other is, what do you do for fun? But in general, if someone asks you, what do you do? You are going to respond with your profession or your work or your vocation in life. Vocation is something that might not be your job, but it might be your desire for yourself in the future. So many people, when they're still learning English, they learn how to say, what do you do? I'm a teacher, right? I'm a banker. I'm a baker. I'm a mom, which is also a job, and so is dad. But you want to really understand that this question, what do you do? If you respond with this definition, I am this thing, you're actually going to have trouble really connecting with the other person in conversation. Because when you just respond, I am this, it doesn't give a lot of information. So imagine you guys, if you come to my YouTube channel and I say, hello, I'm Kim, I'm an English teacher. How's your reaction? Like, oh, great, you're going to help me with my English, which might be great. A lot of people are English teachers. I'm trained. I have 10 years of experience. I've been teaching for a long time, and I've had the job title English, I think it was ESL teacher, but actually most of the time my job title has been ESL instructor, vocational ESL instructor, literacy instructor. Like, people don't actually, my title isn't really teacher because I'm not a school teacher. I teach adults like you guys. So this isn't a really good answer, is it? Like, if somebody asks me, what do you do? And I respond, I'm an English teacher. They're like, okay. And this was especially challenging for me when I was living in New York and I was working in a field that I had a job to pay the bills of living in New York. I worked as a paralegal in a law firm, and it was not that interesting. And when people asked me what I did, I felt like the conversation ended there because I didn't want to talk about it. It wasn't my passion. It wasn't something I felt really strongly about. So when someone asks you, what do you do? Let's talk about how to answer that question a little bit better. And it is totally okay. Yeah, I'm a welder. It's okay if you answer with I'm a. But when somebody asks you, what do you do? We're using that action verb do. So you want to talk about your actions that you do. And the reason I think this is a great question to start with is that a few months ago, my mother actually asked me, so when people ask me, what do you do? Like, what does my daughter do? How should I answer? Like, what would you tell people? And I say, instead of saying I'm an English teacher, which doesn't give a lot of details, I say, I work with non-native English speakers to help them sound more natural in English by helping them improve their conversation skills and communication ability and to reduce their accent. that is so much more full and interesting because it gives you more details about what I do. It's the same thing for when you come to my English channel. I remind you every single day that you're here, that I'm your guide to conversation skills to help you sound more natural, because we talk about conversations and we talk about how to sound more natural, whether that's through your pronunciation or your stress or your intonation or just sounding more natural with the language you're choosing. Can I teach you grammar? Absolutely. I know how to teach grammar. Can I teach you vocabulary? Sure. But is that really what I'm doing here? No. And so I want you to think about your jobs, and I want you to think about how can you share more information. So a lot of times with the question, what do you do, you're asking things like, okay, so some of you said I'm a financial analyst. In what field, right? What field do you work in? Or I'm a student, what do you study? So instead of saying I'm a student and that's your definition of yourself, I study engineering, which is more interesting. I study electrical engineering. I study mechanical engineering. I study architecture. I study architecture in cities. I study architecture in rural areas, right? The more information you can give to what do you do, this is going to help you really make a connection with the other person. Because a lot of times when people ask you this question, they're asking you to tell what you're excited about, what you work hard on. And this is also really important because some people aren't working in the professional field traditionally, right? They're not working to have a job right now because either they have children and they're taking care of their children, maybe they're looking for work. Think about actors and actresses when they are trying to act, but they may be between their jobs. They have to pay the bills. They have to make money. So they might work as a waiter or server, or they might work doing something else temporarily. Or we're actually multi-dimensional interesting people, and we might do more than one thing. So I teach, but I also run an online business, right? I create websites. I do these live videos with all this technology. I write emails. I do email marketing. I respond to my students. I create programs. So it's not just about teaching, is it? So I want to hear from you guys in the chat as how you can make your profession sound more interesting, how you can make your job sound more interesting if you really want to share what you really care about with someone that you're getting to know. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about that as we go through that, because it's a really interesting question, am I right? And I know there's a number of you watching, so I want to see that chat get a little more exciting. And come on, guys, let's get some answers. So what do you do? How can you make it a little longer, a little more interesting? And so some of you mentioned, what do you do for a living? And this is really important as well, because sometimes when we are doing work for a living, it pays the bills, right? And I keep referring to this phrase, pay the bills. So sometimes what you do for work to pay the bills, to afford your lifestyle, to support your family, isn't what you do for fun. So that's why when somebody asks you, what do? You have two options. You can talk about your job, if seems like the right answer, or you can talk about your other interests, your other things that you do. So I see, yes, exactly. You balance numbers, right? So somebody said, let me show you the chat. Let's see. Let's see the chat. Okay, yeah, so I keep numbers. So in that case, we could say, I balance accounts, right? I balance accounts for what kind of people, what industry, anyone, it could be, that's fine, right? And so the same thing with, student, what do you do? So I would love to hear you guys share a little more about what you do there. So that's something to really keep in mind as you're answering this question, is your choice. You have a choice when someone asks you, what do you do? If you want to sound more fluent and more engaging, have better conversations, you're going to think of a different response than just, I am an engineer. I am a banker. I am whatever it is, right? Instead, tell people what you do. And you also are sharing a little more about your personality. And those of you who've been watching my videos know I'm all about sharing your personality through your speech. So think about it. But also, think about how can we also share things about yourself that are not necessarily related to your work, right? Like I said, when I lived in New York, I didn't like my work. And so if I would tell people what I did, this is what would happen to the conversation. It would flatline, it would die, because my work wasn't interesting to people who worked in advertising or marketing, or people who were pursuing their artistic passions, or when I met yoga teachers. So when you think about what do you do for work, you can answer, what do you do for fun? Basically, when you're answering these types of questions, you want to give the person more details about you. So when someone asks you, what do you do? You want to find a way that you can use this information to connect with them. If there's somebody you might be able to network with, they might have a professional opportunity, you can show them, like Ali did, the passion for the work. If you don't really feel like talking about your work, someone asks you, what do you do? You could say, well, I work at a bank, but I love creating watercolor artwork in my free time. Or I'm a marathon runner and I run all the time. And so you can use these more active verbs, right? I run marathons every weekend, right? That's the person's definition of themselves. Their job. This is a great answer. So I'm a nutritionist and I help people learn how to eat healthier or even lose weight. That is amazing, right? So when you just say I'm a nutritionist, to be honest, even though I have an idea of what a nutritionist is, I don't really understand it, right? I don't really understand your job. So when you tell me I help people learn how to eat healthier or even lose weight, I have more information. So it's so nice to hear that. And so think about it. Think about what are the things that you do. So if I think now, so right now I teach English online, right? So I teach English online. I help non-native speakers sound more natural, right? I work on communication strategies. I help them understand the way native speakers communicate. I help them connect in conversation, right? So a lot of times we can use the word help, or I work with people to do something. You can use help and I work with someone to do something. So that's another answer that you have. If I were to talk to someone who's not interested in communicating better, like maybe I would tell them about the online business side. I design my website. I create content for social media. I write blog posts and articles. I create live videos. I try to build a YouTube channel. Like, how much more interesting is my job? And this is also why I want you to understand, when you're interacting with people like me through YouTube or through Facebook Live or whatever, is that we do a lot. We do a lot that you don't necessarily see. Like, making all of this chat work takes a little skill. It takes some time. So this can help me if I want to get a job doing this kind of work, right? It's not just about the teaching. It's about connecting the teaching to the other aspects of work that you do. And that's why I really enjoy teaching online, is it enables me to learn new things and learn new things about you guys. This is amazing. When I taught in the classroom, I had pretty traditional behavior. I taught my classes, I planned for my classes, I prepared materials for my classes, and that was it. This is much more dynamic, and I get to learn about you guys. The other thing I mentioned is that through these conversations with Kim live videos, we're also going to talk about how to ask a better question. And so when someone asks you, what do you do? Now you understand how to make it a little more active. Use an active verb. Show your passion for your work. Or if you're not that interested in your work, show your passion for things that you do in your free time. Like I said, right now I do this online business, but I also create embroidery art. I also read and study a lot about connecting with other people and having, better communication. I also study this as well. So I might, say that, I ride my bike a lot. I'm an avid biker, right? So I might want to share a little more information so that the people know a little more about me than just what I do for work. But if you want to know what someone does for work, first of all, you can ask, what do you do, if you want to know what they do for work. But are there better questions? Are there better questions that you can ask? Like, what do you really want to know about the person? Like, do you need to know their definition of themselves? Like, I'm an engineer, right? I'm a teacher. I'm a business person, right? Do you really want to know that about them, or do you want to know something better? And that's why some of you guys mentioned earlier in the chat, like, what do you do for a living? That's when you want to know specifically, what do you do for work? What do you do for your job? Like, what do you do? What do you study, if somebody's asking you specifically if you're in the academic setting? So how can you ask a better question, right? So a lot of times people say, what do you do for fun? But if you want to ask even better questions, you're going to go a little bit deeper into it, and you're going to ask things like, what do you what do you do on the weekends? What do you do when you're not working? What do you do when you're not studying? What do you wish you had more time for? What do you like watching, right? What do you like doing on your phone? Like, what kind of apps do you use? I actually love asking people about apps because it tells me about what's important to them. Like, right, okay, I'm a secondary school teacher. What subject, right? So you teach kids who are 12 years old. What kind of secondary school? What's your favorite part of teaching, right? And I would love you guys to answer me as I respond to you talking about yourself. What kind of things do you actually love doing, right? What kind of things do you love doing? Because you can teach and you might really love leading drama classes after school, or you might be a physical education teacher and you really love helping people learn how to dance or learn how to work on a team together, play on a team together. So there's more information you can share. This is wonderful. Horacio, you get a gold star for today. Listen to this. Drawing is my passion, and I'm willing to move forward to being a character designer and illustrator career. Yes, you're working towards becoming an illustrator, having a career as an illustrator. Because if you just say, I draw, I don't know what's that. Oh, this is great too. You guys I love this. This is getting great. Thank you guys for your participation. Yeah. Yes, and Ava, this is a great question. So even if you say I'm a secondary school teacher, I teach sixth grade, let's say, and that's it. Like, for you, it's routine. But like, here's what you just said. Something amazing. So if you say, I work in a secondary school, I love teaching because I never stop learning. My students teach me different things. Like, for example, when I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones. Like, I don't even know what it would have been like to be a secondary school teacher when kids have cell phones. Like, that's interesting, like, to talk to people about how things have changed. It's not about trying to be a more interesting person. It's about finding what's interesting in yourself that you already have, because you're interesting to somebody else because they don't know you. So when you're trying to have a better conversation, if someone asks you, what do you do? It's actually a lazy question. Like, it's a lazy question. It's the question everyone asks when making small talk. And many of you know I talk about small talk a lot on my website. I'm actually talking about small talk in my private program right now as well, because I want you to have better conversations with small talk. Your goal is not to sound more interesting, for you to sound more interesting. Your goal is to have the pure person you're talking to get more information for you so that they can ask you more questions, they can participate with you more, because you're new to them. You're a new person. Especially if someone asks you, what do you do? They don't know you. It's a stranger. So how can you give them more information so that you can find things in common, or you can find a way to connect in the future, or you might be in a networking situation, in a professional environment. Maybe you can work together, you can collaborate. So by giving more information, your job is probably boring to you because you do it every day, but it's not boring to someone who doesn't know you. So I love this. Like, some of these, you might think you know what a nutritionist does, but I don't really. When someone tells me they're a nutritionist, I don't really know what they're doing, right? When someone tells me that they're, a teacher, like, I don't know what that, I mean, I know because I teach, and I've worked in the school system in Chile, but like, I don't know, like, what is interesting about your work or what's challenging about your work. So it's your opportunity to give them more information. But I just want you to think about, instead of asking like, what do you do? I love what you said. What are the things you want to do or don't have a chance to do? What are you passionate about? What lights you up? What makes you happy when you spend time with it? How would you spend a free Saturday? Ask these questions to learn more about them, because people don't just want to talk about their work. Americans always ask about work because that's our culture, is to ask about your work, ask about school, ask about what you do. It's kind of a little boring. And then, where are you from, right? Anyone who's lived abroad or traveled knows you're like, "Ugh, do I have to answer where I'm from?" So don't be as lazy. Think about, what do you do and how can you ask this a little bit better. I love this comment here, so I'm going to show it on the screen. Ava, what's challenging about my job is motivating students to learn and get the best from themselves so they can make a better world. Aren't you guys all amazed with how much Ava is talking about her job now? Like, first she said, I'm a secondary school teacher, and now she's saying, I motivate students to learn. I'm getting chills. I'm getting goosebumps, right? I motivate students to learn and get the best from themselves so they can make a better world. Teachers are amazing. I have so much respect for people working with children because you're helping them become world citizens, especially now where we have all this global communication. But I hope you feel more confident answering the question, what do you do? And giving more details about yourself, about your life, about the things that you're passionate about, the things that interest you, the things that take your energy in a good way, right? Because sometimes we have jobs that we don't like, or not, you don't always like your job all of the time. You might love your job. It sounds wonderful for everyone to follow their passion, but sometimes there's things about work that aren't as exciting, right? When I'm responding to lots of emails, it's not as fun as teaching a live video, right? So I want you to think about how you can answer that question more engagingly. And if you're talking to someone and you want to know what they do, ask them, what's something you enjoy about your job? What makes you passionate about your job? What's your favorite thing about your job? What's challenging? I love this answer about what's challenging about your job because it also shows you more information about them and about like how maybe they can help you. You want to help them. Sometimes you're going to want to help others and sometimes you're going to want them to help you. So think about how you can answer this. Oh, I love this. I'm going to show you guys. Because I know the video is not the same as the chat. So, oh, this is wonderful. Okay. Porn Prom says, I teach about mental health and psychiatric nursing, but my experience focuses on nursing care to help depressed patients or patients with depression get better and care about, get better. And you also care for palliative patients, people with terminal illnesses. Amazing, right? So you're teaching these people. So not only are you, an experienced nurse, I'm imagining, but you also have this experience teaching people how to handle depressed patients, how to handle people who have terminal illnesses. That's amazing, right? I'm so much more interested in you because you gave me more details, right? And imagine all the questions that can flow from that response, right? There's so many ways to ask you, oh, wow, like, do you have one tip? I have a friend who's depressed. Like, what's one thing I can do to help him? People can start asking you more questions. So when you respond with these great answers, this helps other people continue the conversation with you. I hope that's helping you understand that. Sessions. And Aida says, as a nutritionist, I make a personal diet plan for people with different goals. Some people want to lose weight, others want to gain weight or heal some disease. Exactly, right? And so think about it. A nutritionist, if you just say I'm a nutritionist, I'm not really sure, right? And you did at the beginning, but now you're sharing. Yeah, and I love this. As a nutritionist, this is a great beginning phrase. I'm so glad you wrote this. I imagine you studied this before or you're just really, really smart. But yeah, as a nutritionist, this is what I do. That's a great answer to what do you do. In fact, I didn't think of that. So applause for you because you thought of how to say that. As an online English teacher, I work with non-native speakers, right? As a student of politics, I want to turn my passion into a career. So this is great. So I make a personal diet plan for people with different goals. Now look at this. She mentioned some people want to lose weight, others want to gain weight or heal some disease, right? Or to get over a disease. Because if I'm going to ask you, like, for example, like some people might want to lose weight, some people want to gain weight. Those are two different goals. You eat more in different things in order to gain weight. And for some people, gaining weight is a challenge. Some people losing weight is a challenge. And some people, they need a diet that's better for their body. That's amazing. So now I'm like, I have so many questions. If I were sitting face to face with you having some tea, I would be asking you more questions. So let's see if anybody else wants to share. And don't feel embarrassed. Like maybe you don't have a good answer. We can help you with it. It's really important to think like, how can you give the other person an answer that they can work with? Now, I want you guys to tell me as we're, finishing up with this video, do you feel like now you feel more confident, like speaking more fluently about your profession or about your personal interests in a way that will engage the person in conversation? Because this is something I really want you guys to understand through my lessons is really you have to think about how it's not just about you. A lot of people, when you're not quite an advanced or fluent English learner or English non-native speaker, you feel like maybe you it's about what you're saying. But really, in a conversation, you sound more fluent or you seem more fluent when you give the person more information. I know a lot of people who are pretty good at English who don't speak. They kind of keep their mouths shut. I have taught over the years, I've taught so many conversation classes, and some people talk a lot. From certain countries, they're more comfortable just talking and making mistakes, and others, they're more quiet. So even if you understand everything, but you're not speaking, then the person thinks you're not fluent. So being able to answer this question in a way that gives the other person questions they can ask you is helpful, because having a good conversation is about having more questions that can come afterwards, right? It's not really about having the best answer. And that's what I think a lot of people forget to explain to people as they're learning how to have better conversations. So that's why I decided to do this type of video. And so yeah, so basically I just want you to think about, how can you have a better conversation? How can you help the person ask you questions? So if you don't feel comfortable asking questions, which is what I teach a lot, how can you give them more information so they can ask you questions? Because even if you say, I'm from Brazil, like, there's no information there. I want more information. Like, where in Brazil? Are you from the part with the beaches, the part with the mountains, the part with the jungle, right? You can give more information. So we'll talk about that more going forward. But really just think about, how can you engage the person more? How can you give them more information to talk with you? That's how you're going to sound more fluent. And that's the secret the fluency coaches are not telling you. Oh, once again, I'm Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. This has been Conversations with Kim, episode 1, and we talked about the question, what do you do? If you have any questions after this live stream, please leave a comment below the video, and I will do my best to answer you. Once again, if you have questions you want to talk about in a future episode, submit it at this quick little form at EnglishWithKim.com/ask, and I'll be able to answer it, and also thank you for asking the question. It has been wonderful sharing this time with you guys today. I'll stick around in the live chat and talk to you for a little bit afterwards. If you like this video, you please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. It helps more people find this channel and get people watching, which helps me and helps you guys, because the more people who watch, the more people I can help. So please keep coming back. Subscribe if you haven't already. I know you guys are subscribers, and I really appreciate you, and I hope that this was super helpful for you and you enjoyed it. Thank you once again. I'm Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. I already said that, but that's okay. I'm your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. Have a good one. Goodbye.